دولة رئيس مجلس الوزراء الدكتور مصطفى مدبولي، معالي الوزراء، السفراء، السيدات والسادة الحضور الكرام، أهلا ومرحبا بحضراتكم في المؤتمر الخاص لإطلاق الاستراتيجية الوطنية لتغير المناخ 2050. يعد تغير المناخ واحدا من
conference to launch the climate strategy. It is one of the most important strategies that will be launched in times we are going to face the climate change, to take into account the development plans and the water plenty. Egypt is considered one of the most vulnerable countries that would suffer from climate change. It suffers from its contributions to the global warming gases is just 1.6. However, Egypt is very serious to face climate change and ratified the most important climate convention. Ratified UNFCCC 1991, Kyoto Protocol 2005. 2017 it ratified Paris Convention, and it is preparing for COP27 Sharm el-Sheikh next November. And now I will give you the floor to watch a documentary to face the Egyptian efforts to face climate change.
مع كل طلعة شمس العالم بيتغير، الطبيعة بتواجه تحدي جديد، التلوث، التصحر، وفوق كل ده تغير المناخ. ومصر بتثبت كل يوم إنها قد التحدي، بتحدد أهدافها وبتسابق خطواتها علشان توصل لمستقبل بيئي أفضل. من هنا خاضت الحكومة المصرية تحدي التكيف مع التغيرات المناخية بتنفيذ مشروع تبطين الترع وإعادة تأهيل البحيرات في كل محافظات الجمهورية. مصر قدرت تنقل استخداماتها من الطاقة التقليدية للطاقة الجديدة والمتجددة، وبالتقنيات المبتكرة عرفت تحول مخلفاتها لمصدر للطاقة وتخلي الحفاظ على البيئة أساس للتنمية. وفي زمن قياسي نجحت الحكومة المصرية في حل واحدة من أصعب أزماتها، الكثافة المرورية، لما بنت شبكة طرق عملاقة قدرت تسهل حركة المرور وفي الوقت نفسه تقلل انبعاثات عوادم السيارات ومعدلات التلوث. أما هنا على أرض اسكندرية مشروعات حماية الشواطئ المتطورة بتحكي قصة نجاح جديدة في مجال التكيف مع التغيرات المناخية. ومع زيادة الطلب على الطاقة استغلت مصر قدراتها وإمكانياتها علشان تكون من الدول الرائدة في استخدام الطاقة الجديدة والمتجددة وتبني محطة بنبان أكبر مجمع للطاقة الشمسية في العالم، وتتوسع في استخدام طاقة الرياح بزيادة مزارع توليد الكهرباء من الرياح. الطاقة المتجددة، النقل المستدام، وإدارة المخلفات مجالات بذلت فيها مصر جهود كبيرة علشان تخفف الانبعاثات المسببة لظاهرة الاحتباس الحراري، ولضمان بيئة ذكية وصديقة للطبيعة بتنفذ أنظمة جديدة لإدارة المخلفات وخصوصاً المخلفات الصلبة. وكوسيلة مواصلات أكثر استدامة، المونوريل دلوقتي بيربط العاصمة الإدارية الجديدة بوسط القاهرة. العالم بقى بيشهد لمصر بجهودها في التحول للطاقة النظيفة والمتجددة. بحر البقر أكبر محطة لمعالجة مياه الصرف الصحي في العالم، ونجاح جديد بيضاف لرحلة مصر للوصول لمستقبل أخضر. على مدار تاريخها بنت مصر حضارة عريقة قدرت تبهر كل العالم. مصر بتواصل جهودها وبتكمل مشروعاتها علشان تحقق استراتيجيتها للتنمية المستدامة.
Ladies and gentlemen, today Egypt is struggling against climate change by launching the National Strategy for Climate Change 2050 to reduce the repercussions of climate change, improve the quality of life for Egyptians, and to maintain natural resources, enhance its role with regard to climate change. To discuss this strategy, its objectives, I am honored to call Her Excellency Minister Yasmin Fuad to deliver her statement. In the name of Allah, Your Excellency Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, dear ministers, MPs, media, NGO, international organizations, Al-Azhar representative, Egyptian Church representative, I firstly welcome you at this conference, Climate Change Strategy launch. I'm going to show you the general framework that we achieved together with other government entities under the auspices of His Excellency Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli. If we are going to discuss climate change, it is a big threat to our life. Our vision is to pay attention to this threat. The strategy is focusing on 4 pillars: improve life quality, economic sustainable development. Climate change is affecting the whole aspects of our life. To also enhance Egyptian role with regard to the international development. This is the core of the strategy. We depended on 2 phases. First, the Egyptian Constitution and articles that would enhance the clean environment and the conservation of this environment. Second is the sustainable strategy, the sustainable development strategy. Third, sectoral strategy for all sectors. We started to analyze the strengths and weaknesses of each component. Then we set objectives. We have the National Council for this strategy and headed by the Prime Minister, and then we have the objectives, the details of each objective. This strategy is integrated. It is not a technical strategy. The objective is to adapt to climate change. First objective is sustainable economic, sustainable development. Reduce emissions according to Paris Convention. How to control the emissions and while achieving development. Second, how to adapt to climate change. The country should be able to face that, to mitigate the impact. Stakeholders are important. That's why we need governance to distribute different roles on different stakeholders. Mitigation without financing, varied financing resources is useless. The developed countries have to take the responsibility. We are not the cause of this. That's why we need real participation from the private sector. What if climate change is changing itself to Celsius degrees, and then other times 1.5 Celsius degrees? That's why we need to develop ourselves. The first objective, the different sectors. Electricity is very important. It includes oil, the petroleum and transport, renewable energy, how to reduce emissions by the replacement of vehicles to make them working by natural gas, maximize the energy efficiency, sustainable production and consumption, waste management and recycling. How to be resilient to this challenge. This is adaptation. Adaptation is that higher degrees would cause more bacteria and viruses. Therefore, we need to do studies on the impact on health and the mangroves and the environment. Maybe we have whole areas like in Aswan that are impacted. We need early warning systems. We need something important in this strategy, and the Secretariat of the Convention praised that to enhance the response, women responses to climate change, women empowerment, to give her opportunity to face climate change. The distribution of roles, how to have coordination mechanisms. And I'd like here to say that 2019, 2021, Egypt suffered 4 degrees higher, and that is a big change. And the state is paying attention to this, and the political leadership and the prime minister are paying more attention to this problem. We are speaking about financing mechanisms, renewable energy and new energy resources like solar booths in Sharm el-Sheikh. This is innovation. Green bonds. Minister of Finance innovated green bonds, and this is part of adaptation. Private sector participation under the leadership of the Prime Minister. They offered incentives with the Minister of Planning for projects in transport, energy, hydrogen. They are related to climate change all. We when we are going to work on climate change, there is room for development. And the fifth objective is scientific research. The Scientific Academy and Higher Education Ministry is paying attention as well to climate change awareness. They can study master degree on climate change, and we have with us the church, Al-Azhar, the parliament, and other entities to raise awareness of climate change locally. This strategy is linked to sustainable development strategy. We are trying to interconnect them. Our objective in the strategy is to achieve economic sustainable development. This is objective 3. Improvement of finance and competitive economy. We set indicators for each objective. We set standards to follow up the implementation. We have all implementing partners, Egyptian government, multilateral cooperation, women, the whole society, the civil society. Based on instructions of the Prime Minister, we identify priorities and we set plan for the strategy. We have priorities. First group of priorities is new and renewable energy projects, sustainable transport, water, and reduction of carbon reservoir. The financing in the strategy, we identified how to do so. What is the road in the coast as well to 2050? Egyptian government had less than 1% of emissions. We have 211 billion for mitigation. And this is the end of my statement. I thank my colleagues, representatives of the different entities and all partners with us in this strategy. And Janib Yundili, the Prime Minister, the head of the National Council, he is determined to finalize the strategy in less than 15 months. We started in July 2021 and we are launching it now. We hope that this strategy is going to be ideal example to be followed by other countries in COP27 and to give a good example in Egypt. Thank you very much. Thank you, Your Excellency Minister of Environment, for your presentation. We pay a tribute to the Minister role and hosting COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh. Allow us now to open the floor for discussions at different sectors, and we welcome other ministers with us. Her Excellency Dr. Hala Al Said, Minister of Planning and Economic Development, Engineer Tariq Al-Mulla, Minister of Petroleum and Mineral Resources, Mr. Saeed Al-Qusayr, Minister of Agriculture, Ms. Elena Benova, the coordinator of UNEP, the engineer Muhammad Al-Swidi, head of Egyptian Federation for Industries. I'm honored to moderate this debate. I thank Her Excellency Minister Yasmin Fuad for her presentation, simplified presentation. It covered all points and referred to community awareness, solidarity among different entities. His Excellency Minister Sameh Shukri spoke about community awareness few days ago. It requires solidarity among different entities. Let me start with you, Your Excellency Minister Hala Saeed. As said by Her Excellency Yasmin Fuad, this strategy comes in important time. How can we guarantee the integration of this strategy to Egyptian Vision 2030, and what are the projects Egypt is working on currently? Thank you, Jasmine, and thanks a lot to Your Excellency Prime Minister and dear ministers with us, representatives of NGOs, private sector, international organizations, MPs. I express my gratitude on that occasion, the launch of the National Strategy for Climate Change in the presence of His Excellency the Prime Minister and other entities. I am very proud that Ministry of Planning contributed in this strategy. We exerted great effort last month. The strategy 2030 that was launched in 2016, supported by the President, we decided to, we prepared it based on participatory approach, and in the strategy the private sector, the civil society participated, and the government was just organizing the efforts together. We have different dimensions: social, economic, environmental. We are willing to achieve goals, higher growth rate, employment, social protection. This is not to be done unless we maintain these efforts, and the environmental dimension is important. There are major developments locally, regionally, and internationally. We suffered from COVID-19 pandemic. This is a live document that's going to be updated. The most important development is climate change, the necessary to reduce greenhouse gases and negative impact of climate change. This is very important. Another important point is that Egypt, when it launched 2030 vision or strategy and the structural reform, it depends on three dimensions: the production, industry, IT, green, the green economy is important as well. In cooperation with the Ministry of Environment, we launched for the first time standard for uh, sustainable environment. We have to take into account the issues related to emissions in different sectors for mitigation and adaptation both together. This year, by the end of June, we will achieve like 80% or 40% next year. We we try to reach higher to finalize in 2024. There is big bunch of projects on sustainable transport. The state invested in transport, e-transport specifically. Other projects related to renewable energy, wind energy. There are projects related to water desalination. As you saw, declining protection of coast or coastal areas. These are main projects. National presidential project Haya Karima, decent life. The main component is to establish sustainable villages. Last point is encouragement of private sector. We watched the conference organized by His Excellency the Prime Minister, the role of the private sector, and it is the main driver or operator of labor. We have a sovereign fund to push forward private sector and enhance projects implemented by the fund in cooperation with the Suez Canal Authority. The green hydrogen. Egypt is considered a main hub for green hydrogen. The localization of different industries. The fund participated in One Planet initiative that was launched to enhance Paris Convention. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Minister of Planning, for your comprehensive answer. Now I give the floor to Engineer Tariq Al-Mulla, the Minister of Petroleum and Mineral Resources. Gas, petroleum, gasoline, these are sectors that are producing emissions. Statistics indicate that more than 50% of the emissions come from them. Central Bank referred that the investment in these sectors is more than 13.5. These sectors are major sectors to produce emissions. How to decarbon the oil sector? Thank you, Ms. Jasmine.
حي دولة الرئيس
I
والحضور الكريم.
welcome His Excellency the Prime Minister and dear colleagues and participants.
ولازم
If we speak about energy,
نتكلم على
we have
الطاقة بكافة أشكالها.
to consider all types of energy interconnection with economic development. There is no economic development without energy. This is a burden. You all know that people believe that pollution and emissions come from this activity. This industry is considered international and related to some determinants: safety, environment, and our responsibility before the society and internationally. This is the significance of sustainable development. We have different domains. We discussed them. When we speak about the economic sustainable growth, these are our general objectives. As you said, and Her Excellency said, we are not going to discuss renewable energy. In 2016, we launched Strategy 2035, a mix which is acceptable, adaptable to international standards, and to meet the requirements in Kyoto, Paris Convention. The mix is increasing the dependence on fossil fuel, and to reach the 49% to renewable energy, wind, hydrogen, and others. As you know, hydrogen is a point of interest. We try to cooperate with World Bank to include new components. We had in 2016 coal, which is out of the mix. Therefore, we need a safe mix, less emission industry, maximize energy efficiency. A new component in the formula is demand, energy demand management. In brief, when we speak about our efforts to improve energy efficiency, we refer to refineries. Previously, due to subsidy to oil products, they weren't developed. Refineries weren't developed. They weren't managed in a rational method. That's why we had a strategy. The state had mega projects for new refineries, or to develop some of the units. We have in the strategy the development of refineries and the development of the efficiency of these refineries. We had studies and funding from EU Bank and other donor entities. due to the development and the global crisis, it seems that the strategy is well developed to produce our products efficiently
عدم كفاءة في الإنتاج.
and to avoid lack of
في
efficiency.
التكرير
We can see in the refineries this light,
وتصافي ومصانع البترول
a
وغيره.
fire that comes out of the refineries.
الحرق
This is the burning
الصناعة دي
process,
بيحصل لها
gases in
احتراق أو حرق.
this
احنا بنتكلم ازاي ان
process.
احنا نقلل هذا
Burning,
الحرق،
how
ازاي ان
to
احنا ناخد هذا الغاز
reduce
ونعيد
this burning,
استخدامه
how to
في منتجات أخرى
reuse
زي
the
البوتاجاز
gas,
والنسيج.
these
فبرضه أحد
gases
العناصر اللي احنا
in
بنستخدمها
other
بتحتاج تمويل، وكلها حاجات النهارده
sectors like
هذا الموضوع
the
من
household gas. We
العالمية
need
انه
to
نجد ترويج بسيط في
reconsider
نقدر ناخد
this.
تمويل لهذه
We need to get financing for these
تقليل الانبعاثات
projects that would reduce
ويبقى في
the
عندنا
emissions,
مناخ وجو
to have an appropriate
كجزء من
climate
المنظومة العالمية.
as part of the global system.
نسمع عن البتروكيماويات
We heard
والغاز
about
فإحنا النهارده بندخل
petrochemicals.
في حاجات نسقنا فيها مع
We
وزارة البيئة.
coordinated with the Ministry of Environment.
المواسم الخاصة
Rice
بزراعة
straw burning.
لأول مرة بنبدأ
For the first time, before the end of the year, we would open a factory that is going to work on rice straw
يستخدم في الاستخدامات
to produce the MDF,
الحالية وبنعمل منها
and this
مجموعة
is
من المشروعات هتتكرر بعد كده.
going to be repeated.
الإيثانول الحيوي وده يدينا
We work on ethanol as a biofuel.
كلها مشروعات برضو بتتكلم على ازاي ان احنا نقدر نشتغل على
These
الحاجات
projects reflect how can we reach environment-friendly projects. We will generate oils from the coral reefs,
من اهم المشروعات اللي احنا بنشتغل فيها ويمكن هنا
and
الموارد الطبيعية
as for natural resources and natural gas, it was internationally selected as a transitional fuel until we achieve new and renewable energy projects. His Excellency the President
حياة كريمة ويمكن احنا
supported different initiatives in this track, and decent life we will cover 4 million Egyptians by the network of the natural gas, and we will cover 14.5 million Egyptians by natural gas to reduce the dependence on the household gasoline
اوفر وفي نفس الوقت صديق
and to save money. It is environment friendly. We will try to improve the income and alert from the impact on natural resources. Ministry of Environment is working on measurements on the emissions. There are sensors to measure emissions to know exactly if they are meeting the standards or exceeding the standards. And thanks God that the Ministry of Environment lately, as we have seen how the Cairo atmosphere is developing due to refineries. His Excellency the President inaugurated a complex in Mustoron. We hope that this we are all the time accused of being polluting. We are working on carbon capture, CCUS, carbon uses. We take the opportunity on COP27 to get funding for these projects. These are important opportunities. I said before how to manage the oil demand by launching economic reform in 2016 and to face the challenge of subsidy of oil products. However, the fuel use is still stable. We managed to correctly price the oil products and to redirect revenues for the social protection. Consumption is not increasing. We are meeting the needs of the market. Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. Tariq Al Mullah. The private sector participation in the international conference. Do you refer to projects that had private sector participation? Half of the companies working in governorates and cities are from private sector. We are totally working on the conversion of private sector into natural gas by private companies. Vehicle conversion is done by private sector companies. The banking complex, private sector 30%. Petroleum sector is pioneer in integrating the private sector in these activities. We are like regulators. We are cooperating with the international companies. They are implementing the projects in cooperation with the private sector. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Minister of Petroleum and Mineral Resources. Now we give the floor to the Minister of Agriculture. Based on some statistics, it is said that 14% of the contribution of the emissions come from the agriculture sector. How you face that? First of all, thank you very much for your efforts. This reflects the determination of the political leadership. Agriculture sector is accused of raising the emissions hugely. No. Agriculture sector is reducing the emissions. Statistics deny the development in agriculture, smart cultivation. If you allow me, I can tell you that currently the whole world is going to launch a platform for carbon trading. Agriculture is going to lead in this. It is very, very sensitive. It is related to two main resources, land and water, the most vulnerable resources to be affected by climate change. We are positively reacting to the crisis. We are increasing the oxygen by our development. We are facing challenges, not our sector alone, but we are going to be affected. The productivity of crops, inappropriate climate circumstances that would affect on the production of some crops, that would affect on water consumption, higher the temperature would increase the consumption of water, evaporation. We had been in a conference in Ivory Coast, the UN Convention on Desertification. There are higher temperature will lead to a higher sea level, higher salination rate, soil erosion, widespread diseases, transnational diseases. It would affect on farmer income, it would affect on coastal areas, and based on the support given by the Prime Minister, we have taken measures that help the agriculture sector. However, there are some projects that we are going to implement to reduce the impact of climate change. We have some projects, very important projects to find the appropriate crops that would be resilient to climate change. The state launched water, the efficient use of water in agriculture and lake lining and other mega projects that would help the crops to combat pesticides. Our colleagues from the private sector we expanded the smart agriculture, and the timing of agriculture is changing. We need to redraw the agricultural map. Very soon we will work on early warning system to reduce risk, to support farmers by information how to address this system. This is very important to raise awareness. This is the main part of the community and the implementation of these projects. Thank you very much. And now we will give the floor to Miss Elena.
How can UN organizations support Egypt in implementing this strategy? And another part of the question is the funding, since the private sector cannot do it by itself and the government as well cannot do it by itself. So the role of the UN agencies in funding.
Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity. First of all, it's indeed, honor and privilege to be on this panel. Thank you for this. I would like to start by congratulating His Excellency, the Prime Minister Madbouli, Minister Fouad, and of course the entire cabinet with the launch of the National Climate Change Strategy. It's a launch in times of uncertainties, in times of crisis, but we know that during these times are the biggest opportunities. So we commend Egypt with this bold step and very timely step. Also, I was extremely, happy to hear that in the presentation of Minister Fouad, she put the natural resource management at the heart of the sustainable development. At the United Nations, we firmly believe in this, that the Paris Agreement and the Agenda 2030 are the two sides of the same coin. So seeing this in the National Climate Change Strategy is indeed, encouraging. At the United Nations, we were very fortunate, I would say, to be in a way involved and also consulted in the preparation of the strategy. We were fortunate because the preparation of the strategy also coincided with the United Nations working on its new cooperation framework, the new 5-year cooperation framework with the government of Egypt. So that helped a lot to shape, the way and conceptualize our cooperation with the government of Egypt. And the cooperation framework is in its final stages, but from what is coming, and I'm very proud of this, we could see that if currently under the current partnership framework, we have around 6 agencies, UN agencies, working in the area of climate change and resilience, also natural resource management. Going forward, we tripled the number of agencies, which is a testimony exactly of what I was saying, that climate change goes beyond natural resource management. It's really at the heart of the sustainable development. It cuts across. It impacts all the sectors, the social sector, the economic sector. It has an impact on the girls and the women. They are the forefront when we talk about climate change and natural resource management. It's also, to a great extent, demonstrates itself in the circular economy. It calls for inclusive economic development. We were talking with the minister before that agriculture at the core, adaptation, innovation, low-cost technologies is what we need and what the small farmers need in order to adapt. So elements of this will be seen, and I'm saying that I'm proud because we have a standalone pillar where the agencies are putting their focus on working on issues around land and water management, sustainable urban infrastructure, things around adaptation, mitigation. But at the same time, the natural resource management and climate change, we put it across all the pillars because, as I was just saying, it is at the heart of sustainable development. You cannot, take the two differently. Talking about the funding, I think the role of the United Nations is to be a catalyst. Is to be a partner that is capable of leveraging the expertise, convening the partners, identifying financial resources, and bringing it together around the important priorities for the government. So going forward is very important, and I believe, and we saw it, that this strategy is a very solid basis for the sustainable development. We're looking forward to the nationally determined contributions which will clearly set the targets, and then the UN agencies, together with the other partners, will be able to partner with the government for the achievement of those targets.
Thank you
so
very
I would
much.
like to thank you very much once again for the opportunity.
Thank you. شكرا للسيدة إلينا بانوفا.
Thank you, Miss Elena Bonova, UN representative, and now we give the floor to businessman Mohammed Al-Swedi, representative of the Egyptian Industry Federation. Her Excellency Yasmin Fouad spoke about partnership between community and private sector, incentives to facilitate the participation of the private sector in green economy. As for industries, what are the facilitations you expect from the government in this to implement the strategy? In the name of Allah, I thank you very much and I congratulate the Prime Minister for the launch of the strategy. It is indispensable strategy for industries. If we are not developing industry, if we are not maximizing the use of resources, efficient use of water and resources, we will face troubles. Complete change must we learn from our problems. How to reduce imports, how to manage waste, the construction sector. We have studies and we have agriculture waste, chemical waste, e-waste. This is huge. We can recycle them to reduce imports and to improve consumption. This requires long-term investment. Therefore, any initiative to improve climate or recycling, it requires support from all parties and specifically donor entities. I'm very pleased that I'm sitting beside one of the donor entities to properly use energy, to be in good position internationally, to export to more countries. We welcome all the time with these participation. The partnership is required between the government and the private sector. The most important question, what are the facilitations you expect or you ask the government to offer to encourage the private sector? In brief, let me tell you that it's a win-win situation. Long-term finance and some incentives for implementing party
ونفذه وطلع القراءات واظن ده في البرنامج
and I believe this is included in the strategy. I'm very pleased to participate and we will play important role in the future. Thank you, Engineer Al-Swedi. The strategy is based on awareness domestically and internationally. I thank all the panelists, Your Excellencies, Mr. Dr. Halan Saeed, Engineer Tariq Al-Mullah, Your Excellency Minister of Agriculture, Mr. Al-Qusayr, Ms. Elina Bonova, and Engineer Al-Swedi. And now we will give the floor, we will play a statement by
Excellency
the
Dr.
Deputy Head of the
Minister Fouad, distinguished ministers and members of the National Council for Climate Change. Ladies and gentlemen, good day. I am extremely pleased and honored to be with you today to share a few thoughts on Egypt's launch of its national climate change strategy. First, my sincere congratulations to Egypt for achieving this important milestone. The adoption of the national climate change strategy is a very timely event as Egypt embarks on its next decade of development. The strategy is fully aligned with Egypt's domestic priorities established in the Sustainable Development Strategy Vision 2030. It is also evidence of Egypt's international leadership. Having a document that squarely addresses the climate at the center of development is a strong call for action for the global community, particularly as Egypt is hosting COP27 in a few months. The National Climate Change Strategy mainstreams mitigation actions to achieve sustainable economic growth and low carbon development in key sectors and enhance adaptive capacity and resilience to climate change. The strategy is also comprehensive as it identifies cross-cutting actions to strengthen governance, enhance climate finance infrastructure, and enhance scientific research, technology transfer, knowledge management, and awareness. Second, let me stress that the National Climate Change Strategy is timely because it is essential to address climate risks and opportunities today. Climate risks pose an existential threat to populations globally. This threat is even more palpable in the Middle East and North Africa region, given it is the most water-stressed region in the world. The range of extreme weather that Egypt or any other country could experience if we fail to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement would range from droughts and prolonged extreme heat waves to more frequent and intense flash floods. So the time to act and avoid these catastrophic consequences is now. Egypt's presidency of COP27, as I mentioned earlier, provides a unique opportunity to strengthen its role on climate policy and action. The country has already taken important steps and built a strong institutions basis for climate action, and this strategy is highlighting Egypt's ambitions and commitments. The World Bank is working hand in hand with the government on programs that support adaptation actions, including the Climate Change Development Report, CCDR, and the Country Partnership Framework, CPF. Both of them will chart our next phase of support around a green, resilient, and inclusive development fully aligned with the National Climate Change Strategy. Finally, let me commend the government of Egypt for developing a solid institutional structure to implement the strategy. Having units with a clear mandate for advancing the strategy goals is essential for concrete action. Similarly, this strategy recognizes the importance of fostering platforms for action, the fundamental role of the private sector, and the need to strengthen an enabling environment that will attract investment from the public and private sectors, including multilateral development banks. And we heard you with interest, Mr. Prime Minister, as you developed an enlarged private sector drive over the last few days. The national strategy reflects Egypt's capacity to tailor global best practices and innovate to put a clear path forward that I am sure will catalyze climate action in Egypt and beyond. Let me reiterate the World Bank's unwavering commitment to assist Egypt's government and the Egyptian people at all times. Ours is a long-lasting and strong partnership. All the very best, and hope to see you soon in Cairo.
شكرا للأستاذ فريد بالحاج نائب
Thank
رئيس
you,
البنك
Mr.
الدولي
Farid
لمنطقة
Belhaj,
الشرق
the
الأوسط
Deputy Head
وشمال
of the
إفريقيا.
World
الآن السيدات
Bank for
والسادة
Middle
الحضور
East and Africa.
الكرام
Now,
أتشرف بدعوة
I'm
دولة رئيس
honored
مجلس
to
الوزراء
invite
الدكتور
His
مصطفى مدبولي
Excellency the
لإلقاء
Prime
كلمة
Minister
عن دور
to
الحكومة في
deliver his
التصدي للتغيرات
statement
المناخية.
on
فليتفضل
government
معنا.
efforts to combat climate change repercussions.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أصحاب المعالي السيدات والسادة الوزراء، السادة النواب أعضاء مجلسي النواب والشيوخ، السعادة السفراء وممثلي البعثات والمنظمات
Council
الدولية،
of Senate, representatives of international organizations,
معكم
dear
اليوم في
participants,
مؤتمر
I'm
إطلاق
very
الاستراتيجية
pleased to
الوطنية
be with
للتغيرات
you to
المناخية.
launch the national
لقد جاءت
strategy
رؤية مصر
for climate
2030
change.
لتركز على الارتقاء
Egypt
بجودة حياة
Vision
المواطن
2030
المصري
is
وتحسين
working
مستوى
on
معيشته
the
في مختلف نواحي
development
الحياة
of Egyptian
مع تحقيق
life
نمو اقتصادي
in all
مستدام
aspects and
وتعزيز
to
الاستثمار
achieve
في البشر.
sustainable development, maximize investment in human beings. Climate change is one of the priorities of the government due to threats of this change on the planet and the development plans, food security, and this is going to affect on the national security of the country, and also it would escalate the food crisis. The emissions, Egypt is one of the countries that is producing less than 60% of the emissions. However, it is vulnerable to more impacts on agriculture, natural resources, health, and population. This is a new challenge for Egypt to achieve sustainable development goals. By 2030, Egypt is going to face climate change impact by a comprehensive environment system to enhance Egyptian resilience to threats. Egypt all the time is committed politically to face climate change. It ratified UNFCCC, Kyoto Protocol, Paris Convention, and we are very keen to provide required reports and required documents. We formed the National Council for Climate Change, headed by the Prime Minister. It includes representatives from different government representatives. It updates the comprehensive strategy interrelated to other strategies, intensify national efforts on different studies on climate change. Many measures were taken to adapt to the negative repercussions of climate change and reduce emissions. For adaptation, the national strategy for adaptation is going to set a general framework to analyze all sectors that are going to be impacted and how to deal with these threats and the impact of different sectors, and to calculate the cost on all sectors just to set the plan for national adaptation in order to integrate adaptation measures in programs and policies that are going to be new, as well as operations and strategic measures in all sectors. We are going to finalize interactive map on climate change needed to help decision makers to identify areas vulnerable to climate change, to take measures in different sectors, and to offer financing opportunities for adaptation, in addition to comprehensive integrated management of projects at coastal areas, early warning system, food, flexible food system that would give the opportunity for farmers to mitigate the impact of these threats and to find mechanisms to face these threats and the climate change in rural areas. As for Egyptian contribution to reduce emissions, we have taken steps like strategy for less emission development. It is updated to 2025 to include national plan
بالإضافة إلى
as
تبني
well as
استراتيجية الطاقة المستدامة
a
لمصر
strategy for
2035
sustainable energy in
والتي
Egypt
تستهدف زيادة
2035
مساهمة الطاقة المتجددة في توليد الكهرباء
to
وتحسين كفاءة
increase
الطاقة
the
وتنفيذ
ratio
العديد
of
من مشروعات
renewable
الطاقة
energy
المتجددة
and to
مثل مشروعات
implement
طاقة
new
الرياح
and renewable
ومشروعات
energy
الطاقة
projects
الشمسية والتي
like
أبرزها مشروع
wind
بنبان بأسوان
projects
والنظرة
being
المستقبلية
banned
لتصبح مصر
as a good
مركزا
example for
إقليميا
solar
للطاقة من خلال
energy.
إنتاج
We
وتصدير
are
الطاقة
aiming to
النظيفة
make Egypt an
مباشرة أو من
energy
خلال
hub,
الهيدروجين الأخضر
clean
والأمونيا
energy,
وغيرها
green
ومشروعات النقل
carbon,
المستدام
ammonia and other,
الأنفاق والمونوريل
sustainable
وتحسين كفاءة
transport,
الطاقة في
underground
الصناعة
monorail,
وكذلك زراعة الغازات
industry,
باستخدام مياه الصرف الصحي المعالج
efficiency
ومشروعات
of
الإدارة
energy in
المستدامة
industries and
وزكية
the
المخلفات كما يتم
sustainable
الانتهاء من
management
البنية
of
التحتية
waste,
لمنظومة
infrastructure of
الحضور
waste
الكرام لقد جاءت
management.
الاستراتيجية الوطنية
Dear
للتغيرات المناخية
participants, the
بأهداف طموحة
national
تشمل
strategy
تحقيق
for
نمو
climate
اقتصادي
change is
مستدام
promising.
ومنخفض
It
الانبعاثات
will
في مختلف
achieve
القطاعات وبناء المرونة
less
والقدرة
emission
على
economic
التكيف
growth,
مع تغيرات
resilience,
المناخ وتخفيف الآثار
adaptation to
السلبية
climate change,
المرتبطة به
mitigation
وتعزيز
of
حوكمة
impact,
وإدارة العمل في مجال تغير
enhancement of
المناخ
governance in
وتحسين البنية
climate
التحتية
change,
لتمويل الأنشطة
improvement of
المناخية
infrastructure,
بالإضافة إلى تحسين البحث العلمي وإدارة
and
المعرفة
scientific
ونقل
research
التكنولوجيا ورفعها.
development, technology transfer,
وكما تم
awareness
مراعاة الاتساق مع
raising.
أهداف استراتيجية التنمية
We
المستدامة
have taken into
للدولة
account
رؤية
the
مصر 2030
consistency
حيث
to
ستساهم الاستراتيجية الوطنية
2030
للتغيرات
vision.
المناخية
The
في
strategy
التأكد
is
من
going
التخطيط المتكامل
to
بين مختلف
ensure
الاستراتيجيات الوطنية
comprehensive
والقطاعية
plan
ودمج
among
الإجراءات
different
المتعلقة
sectors,
بالتغيرات المناخية
integrate
ومعايير الاستدامة
changes
والتعافي
and
الأخضر في التخطيط
green
الوطني وإعداد
recovery in
الميزانية
the national
وتعزيز
planning,
تنافسية السوق وزيادة
prepare the budget,
التنوع
enhance
الاقتصادي وخلق فرص عمل
competitiveness,
خضراء كما تضمنت
green
الاستراتيجية
economy
حزمة من المشروعات
opportunities,
الجاذبة للتمويل في مجالي
incentives
التكيف والتخفيف.
for financing, for
السيدات
project
والسادة،
financing.
تمثل جائحة
Ladies
كورونا
and
والأزمات
gentlemen,
العالمية الراهنة
COVID-19
تحديات
and
جديدة
other
تضاف إلى
current
التحديات التي
crises
يعاني منها
are
الاقتصاد
new
المصري
challenges
بسبب
to
تغير
Egyptian
المناخ،
economy due
ولكن
to
تسعى الحكومة المصرية
climate
إلى
change. The
التخفيف
Egyptian
والاستفادة
government is
من
trying
هذه
to
المحنة
relieve
من
the
خلال تشجيع الاستثمارات
impact by
والمشروعات الصديقة
encouraging
للبيئة، ولعل
investment,
أهم المبادرات الحكومية
environment
في هذا الصدد
friendly
هي السندات
projects,
الخضراء التي
green
تتيح
bonds
تسهيلات
which is going to
لتنفيذ تلك
offer
المشروعات، حيث نجحت
facilitations
مصر في
to
الإصدار الأول للسندات
implement
الخضراء
these
بقيمة
projects. We offered
750 مليون دولار، بما يضع مصر
750
في خريطة
million US
على
dollars
خريطة
for
التنمية
green
التمويل
bonds,
المستدام، كما
and
تم
that
إعداد
would
الإطار الإرشادي
put
لإدماج البعد
Egypt
البيئي
on the
بنسبة
world
معينة
map.
في
We
مشروعات
take
وخطط
into
الدولة.
account the
وختاما،
environmental
فإنه يسعدني
dimension.
ويشرفني أن أعلن
In
لكم اليوم
conclusion,
إطلاق
I am very
الاستراتيجية
pleased
الوطنية
to
للتغيرات
declare the
المناخية
launch of
التزاما من
national
الدولة
strategy
المصرية
for
بالمساهمة
climate
الفعالة في جهود
change
مكافحة
as a
تغير المناخ،
contribution
كما
to
أجدد التأكيد
fight
على أن مصر
against
لن تألو جهدا
it.
خلال
Egypt
رئاستها
will spare
المقبلة لأعمال
no
الدورة
effort
السابعة
to
والعشرين لمؤتمر الدول
organize
الأطراف في اتفاقية الأمم
COP27.
المتحدة الإطارية لتغيير المناخ COP27 في السعي الحثيث
And we
والدؤوب
will
للانتقال من
endeavor
مرحلة
hardly
الالتزامات
to
والتعهدات
meet
المعلنة من جانب الدول
requirements
إلى مرحلة
declared
التنفيذ الفعلي
and to
لإجراءات
implement
وتدابير
them
سريعة وملموسة.
quickly.
شكرا لكم
And
جميعا
thank
والسلام
you
عليكم
very
ورحمة
much.
الله
And
وبركاته.
peace be
واستأذن
upon you
حضراتكم
all, and
بإطلاق
allow me
الصورة
to
الرسمية
launch the
الاستراتيجية
strategy
الوطنية للتغيرات
officially.
المناخية.
شكرا دولة رئيس
Thank
مجلس
you,
الوزراء دكتور
Your
مصطفى مدبولي على
Excellency
هذه
Prime
الكلمة
Minister, for
وعلى مجهود
your
الحكومة
statement
في
and for
مواجهة
your
التأثيرات
efforts to
السلبية للتغيرات
face negative
المناخية والعمل على رفع
impact
الوعي
of
المجتمعي
climate change
بمخاطر
and
التغيرات
awareness
المناخية
raising
والتوسع في
activities
إنشاء المشروعات
and
الخضراء
the
وكل الشكر
expansion
والتحية
of green
أيضا لوزارة
projects.
البيئة وكل
We
القائمين على
thank
هذه الاستراتيجية
Ministry of
ونثمن كل
Environment.
المجهودات للتنسيق بين
We
كافة الجهات
command
حتى
all
نصل
efforts
إلى شرم
exerted
الشيخ
by
وكوب
all entities
27.
to
بهذا
organize
نختتم المؤتمر
COP27.
بإعلان
we conclude the conference and we officially launch the National Strategy for Climate Change 2050.